Hey guys, we're continuing on with Genesis chapter 5. We're at the end, and I don't remember whether we ended at 26 or 28, so we're going to kind of pick up on Genesis 5, verse 26, and this is where it says, and after he brought forth, and this is Methuselah, brought forth Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and brought forth sons and daughters. And all of Methuselah's days were 969 years, and he died. Now remember, that is the oldest that anyone has ever documented to live. I would say the fact that he's documented here, he's the oldest man ever to live. He got really close to that 1,000 year mark, but not quite. And then it says Lamech lived 180 years, and then he brought forth a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, this one does comfort us concerning our work and our toils, I hate that word, toil, in our hands, because the ground which Yahweh has cursed. Again, this is which the merciful one has cursed. You know, we might wonder, how can a merciful God curse things and be like, oh, he's still merciful? Why wouldn't that be the judgmental God? Well, I like to throw this out there to think about. One, everything that the Lord does is literally upholding his word. He is faithful to his word. So being faithful to his word, that means that he's showing himself to be true. And in that process, the hope and the prayer is that we return to him. When we're able to see and truly look and be honest with ourselves and look at the Lord and how he's revealing himself, we can then, if honest with ourselves, be able to realize the plan, be able to realize that he is almighty, he's merciful. The fact that the ground was cursed was merciful because it didn't create mankind to be cursed. So there's, as they say, a silver lining, right, around every cloud. All right, let's look at this. He called his name Noah, because this is the one that comforts us concerning our work and our toil. So let's remember the ground was being finicky, or not giving forth like it was. In other words, man couldn't just say, oh, it's going to grow, and just have trees producing fruit that they're just eating. Now they're having to work for it, right? They're having to do some farming. They're having to do some tilling up, planting seed. They're having to participate in that. So Lamech's words aren't like, oh, well, gee, we can't wait. Now he's going to rescue us so that we don't have to do anything. Noah's bringing us rest means that we are not responsible. That's not the thought process. The thought process is here that where we've had to do the hard work, where that curse was, this is going to lift the curse. Oh, now think about this, Noah as a shadow of Messiah, of Jesus. That's what Jesus did. His rest that he brought lifted the curse of death, the curse of sin and death, right? So while Noah isn't obviously going to be lifting the curse of sin and death, he is going to, his birth is going to bring forth what removes the curse on the earth. And we're going to see that in Genesis chapter 8. We'll see that curse is removed from the earth. And again, this is a shadow of Messiah. This is a shadow of how the actions of a faithful can bring through and rescue and redeem the others. And so again, his faithfulness, building and getting on the ark, is going to be how the Lord uses to make all things new so that curse is removed. When Jesus went on and died for our sins, he took on ours. He brought us through that process of having sin and death. In other words, he broke through sin so that we could go through and not be brought down by it. Kind of like the ark floats right on the top of the water through Jesus. We float through the curse of death because it's going to be removed in the end, right? So anyway, maybe a silly analogy, but one to put out there anyway. It says in verse 30, and after that he brought forth Noah. Lamech lived 590 95 years and brought forth sons and daughters. Verse 31, so all the days of Lamech were 777 years, he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah brought forth Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Japheth. It's a hard word to say. Okay, so I want to talk about these. There's a few things in here that I think are fascinating to kind of play with, to look on a bigger scope. One of them is, let's get an idea of who's alive and who's not when Noah's born. You know, we throw out all these big years of old ages, but we don't seem to realize that when Noah's born, the only people that are gone is Enoch, because he's been taken. He's now with the Lord, right? And Adam and Seth. Those are the only two. Everyone else is still alive. They are able to see the promised seed of who is going to help bring them to redemption, okay? Noah, rest. They understand, they're looking for this. Remember, everyone's looking for who's going to be that one seed that's going to destroy the enemy. Noah's that seed, and they know it. As each of the line was that seed, none of them panned out, per se, to be the one that crushes the serpent's head, all right? But now here's Noah, and they're resting not only in Noah, knowing that he's going to do something profound. They know that he's going to do something that's going to remove the curse on the earth. Why did the curse of the earth come? Because of what happened with the serpent and the fall of mankind. So this is linking, this bringing us rest is linking back to the original fall. It is linking us back to undoing what was done in the beginning. And again, we know Jesus is going to do it even more. Remember, everything in the Hebraic scriptures goes in cycles. It goes in patterns. It's cyclical. I didn't say that word right, but I'm really close. Meaning it goes in a cycle. So each time that cycle moves, it gets closer and closer to its fulfilled, how do I say, its fullest fulfillment. Okay, best way to say it. So Noah is a hint to that. So we have Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Methuselah, and Lamech all alive. That's 6. And then when you count Noah, that's 7. So 7 of who we want to call the patriarchs of before the flood, the line of Messiah, are alive at one time. At the very end, once the promise is brought forth, not fulfilled, but born, he's the 7th generation. And now we're going to see that brought through. Now, I bring that up because remember, the end of what we had on Cain was the 7th generation, and the story ended. So at the birth of Noah, it's 7 generations alive. Of course, he's the 10th generation, but it's the 7th generation alive. 7s, I think, play a cool role in this. Lamech, when he dies about 5 years before Noah and the flood. All right, not before Noah's born, but before the flood. About 5 years or so, he dies, and then we have the flood happening. So let's think about 777. I'm just throwing this out there. I'm going to the end of the book just to give you some thoughts. When you look at the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls of Revelation, go and really read them. I know that we often hear that they happen first the seals, then the trumpets, then the bowls. But I just think that they're presented in that way so that we can see them in their totality of each of their types of events, but not that they're necessarily in that order. Because when you read the 6 of the seals, it lines up with the 6 of the trumpets and the 6 of the bowls. But when you read the 7th of them, that's when everything is for sure. That's the end. The end of the 7th seal is the quieting of the heavens. The end of the 7th bowl is the where you see them in the heavens in the 7 thunders. Trumpet. The end of the bowls is the Lord's coming. He's returning. Okay, so all of these are at the very end. So the reason why I say that is we have the 7th, and the 7th. 777. So I just throw it out there because I love looking at patterns. Isn't it interesting that Lamech dies at 777 years? There is not a coincidence in the Bible. There is a reason. And if we know that the beginning tells us of the end, if we know those two must go together, then there's something very pertinent about him dying at 777, which is just not long before the flood, not long before that final judgment. And so just a thought about that. Something to play around with. So let's look at verse 32, which said Noah was 500 years old. And he brought forth Seth, Ham, and Japheth. Now, if we look at the patterns of all the other lineage, they all brought forth many sons and daughters, right? And then they named the important ones. You notice this isn't just one. There are three that are listed. Because right here, I'm just throwing this out there. Right here, it seems that the exact appointed one isn't known yet. Not sure exactly who that one that's going to carry on the lineage of the Messiah is necessarily chosen. We have three potentials. Three. These three sons are actually not birthed until after the age 500. There are no other sons and daughters mentioned. I would throw out there's a few ways to look at it. One, there's no other mentioned because there weren't any. These are just his first three and only three. That's possible. But there's also the thought that it doesn't matter because there's no one else that's going to be preserved on the ark. There's no one else that's going to make it. So these are the pertinent children that are discussed. Also, it seems that the birth of these three children seem to all be after the promise that the Holy Spirit, or that the Lord is going to only be 120 more years dealing with man. So that means that he gets the promise that he's not dealing with man. The Lord is not dealing with man anymore. And that's in Genesis 6, verse 3. I'll read it real quick. It says, "And Yahweh said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever in his going astray. He is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. So we could see this, and we'll talk more about this, but we can see this as, hey, I'm giving you a warning of 120 more years. Let's start preparing for what's going to be coming. That's a long preparing, right? That's a lot of people preparing. Now, let's remember this also. We have people living many, many years, right? When Noah's born, there are 6 of the line still alive, right? Only 2 were gone. Well, plus Enoch. But Enoch would have probably still been here had he not gone up with the Lord. So we had the 2 oldest that were gone. So think about this. By the time Noah hits 500 years old, it's not just that Methuselah and Lamech are the only ones. Well, I guess Lamech just died. Not that Methuselah is the only one. Or excuse me, my error. They're both alive when he gets this. There are more people. I mean, like, it's not just the godly that are walking in him and living the longest. There are people walking around that are in their 800 and 900 years and 700 years and 605. But you have a lot of people who aren't just dying left and right. Okay? They're still populating. They're still increasing on the earth. So is Noah childless until this promise, or is he just is there just a documentation of those who come after the promise? So we know this because we know that when Seth is born, Noah is around 503. We determine that from later on when it tells Seth's age. I believe that's in Genesis 9, and we'll look at that. And we're not really sure exactly who's the oldest, who's the youngest. But we know that when Seth gets off, I think he's, I think he's 98 years old. I think that's right. Anyway, point being that it seems that none of these kids are over 120 when they get off the ark. So these are children of the promise. So if you want to line that up with Abraham, it was Abraham had kids, right? He had through Hagar, but he didn't have the promised seed until after he was given the promise of being the nation to he and Sarah. Then he was given the seed, right? So it's very possible that this is kind of a prelude to that same type of pattern. Again, don't know. There could be stuff written about it. I'm not aware of it. I just try to put things out there so we can maybe see the bigger picture, kind of get more of a feel how things might have looked. All right, kind of get a feeling of there's a whole lot of people and there's a lot of old people, but they don't look like our old people. Trust me, if we look old at 70 and 80 and 90 and 100, their 6, 7, 8, 900 is not looking like our 70, 80, 90, and 100 years old, okay? Not at all. They got some good genes, remember? They're not too far from the original God created, formed from the earth, Adam. All right, so I wanted to just end on that. I can't think of anything else really I wanted to say, but we will come back and we will start with chapter 6. Chapter 6, trust me, is gonna take a few sessions because there's just so much in there. It's crazy. So thanks for joining me. Hope to see you soon, and I'll get with you on chapter 6. It's where we'll go next. Bye-bye.